interesting was when you mentioned the difference between breaking the glass ceiling and navigating the glass labyrinth.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on that?
Well, certainly, because pushing glass ceilings seems that you always should go up, up, and up. And actually, what you need to be searching for is what you really love to do and where you can be most helpful. So sometimes, you see, rather than push that up, but you have your goal in front of you and you see it. However, there are so many complications along the way that you keep navigating those labyrinths until you finally get there. And of course, it's always helpful to have the support of people around you. That's incredibly important.
Speaking of which, when you became Croatia's first female president and the youngest, we were so incredibly excited because you were such a great role model for women, particularly who may have aspired to enter politics. After your presidency, I'm interested to know, was there a greater interest? Was there a rise in the interest of women entering politics? Was that noted as something that happened after your time in office?
I should hope so, yes. I can't prove it statistically right now, but as I mentioned, what really made me happy is the excitement that children in Croatia felt when I would come in their midst, and when we would not just read together, but really communicate, talk. And I made a point to move my office across Croatia because I wanted to be close to people. It's not populism, it's populism in style, so to say, but it's not populism. Populism, the negative type of populism, in essence, is when you play to base emotions and you criticize everything and you stir negative sentiments, but you don't have any proposals that pertain to the solutions to the problems of the country. But being among people helped me to be grounded and also to, in a way, pay respect to them, to tell them, you've elected me and now it's my duty to be with you and among you. And I hope that through these conversations that sometimes, they just want to be listened to, or they just want to be encouraged, or just shake your hand. And sometimes they would be so incredibly excited, or even they would have this kind of anxiety around me that they would fumble with their phone to take selfies, etc. And that'd always be helpful. I always try to show people first respect, as I mentioned, as the most important currency in interpersonal relations, but also that I'm just the same. The fact that I hold the office is something that may and will change tomorrow or in a few years, but that life is as such that these are cycles that we have to go through. And sometimes you have to be patient. Sometimes when you fall, you really have to find that strength to get up and to get going. But every door that closes is a new opportunity. And I hope that in particular, I've inspired girls to dream big. As the former president of Liberia, Sirleaf, said, if your dreams don't scare you, they're not big enough. So dream big. You might feel a little bit scared, but courage is not absence of fear. Courage is actually dealing with your fears, with your emotions, and nurturing that ambition that you have and belief in yourself.
Beautiful, thank you. I don't have too much time, but I do have one personal question. Having worked in the media for many years, I know just how important the media are in shaping the narrative. I think in some ways the media can create that narrative and intentionally provoke, when really, how could the media play a more active role in participating with the leadership, with leaders and politicians such as yourself, to create a narrative that will inspire hope for countries like Croatia who are growing and building?
Yes, well, the media, not just in Croatia, but everywhere in the world, have become very negative, focusing on negative stories and scandals, clickbaits, basically. And good news doesn't attract much attention, so they don't focus on that. But the media should really focus on positive stories as well, at least for part of the time, and promote these positive, the success stories and the role models, because there's so many of them around us. And when it comes to attitude towards women, I mentioned in my remarks how they framed the whole conversation and my image as being a woman, a blonde, and focusing on these female characteristics, which sometimes, no matter how educated they are, they will not focus on education. They will try to take words out of context and present you as an ignorant or as a shallow person, etc. And sometimes they're outright offensive, calling you names. In Croatia, that would be like the names of domestic animals that are applied to women. And they still don't realize that it is hate speech. And that, everybody will be they're creating that narrative. Everybody will be so careful not to offend anyone based on their national, ethnic background, for instance. But if you're a woman, they think, and women can also be brutal, and just because they're women, it doesn't mean that it's not sexist or misogynist, what they're saying. So they have to be very careful. And the third point that I always try to make, I didn't want to complain about this while I was president, because I did not want for people to think that I'm looking for excuses for my own failures or unsuccessful attempts, etc. So I didn't talk about it much. I only said that what I'm concerned about when people offend me based on my gender is that most people will think that a president is protected in every sense, including against hate speech and including against sexual harassment or these gender stereotypes. So if they see that kind of attitude and that kind of language towards you and they think you're protected, that translates into society. And it brings down the whole rhetoric and behavior. And you can just imagine then what some might feel tempted to do, say to their peers in school or members of their own families. So we were setting really dangerous precedents. And I, in particular, appeal to feminist and female organizations who say, well, she doesn't have to be protected. She can protect herself. Yes, I can. And I've learned to do that. I've developed resilience. But I'm very much worried about the precedents that it sets in society. One of them being selecting who's entitled to be protected and who's not. We all have to be equal before law, and we all have to be equal in terms of public, of what we deserve, of the rights that we should hold, and no one should be denied their rights, because then that translates to other groups and other minorities as well.
I know that you had a significant role in NATO. Would there be any difference if NATO was led by a woman?
Although I do promote gender equality and I put focus on encouraging women and asking for more women to be in positions of leadership, nevertheless, I'm firmly of the position that anyone should be selected, chosen, elected based on their qualities, based on their education, past record, achievements, experience, ethics, and of course their attitude towards others.
And it's such an incredibly inspiring role model. Just one takeaway of advice for women who might want to enter politics, what would you say to them, of Croatian heritage? What would you say? Would you have something that you could leave?
Well, be ready to endure all sorts of things, but never take no for an answer.